Trump didn't just tighten the blockade on Venezuela, he struck Maduro where it hurts most, and Venezuela refuses to sit still.
Venezuela is gearing up for one of its largest military training. President Nicolas Maduro has called the militia to assemble at bases nationwide, and this comes amid growing tensions with the United States.
Now, the Caribbean Sea is gradually turning
into a war zone. So we know what they're doing. We know their deployment in the Caribbean Sea, with every intention of sowing war in the Caribbean. A ghost submarine loaded with tons of gold bars and smuggled barrels of oil was caught slipping through the Caribbean on its way to Cuba. And hidden inside wasn't just cargo. It was a Venezuelan top general, handpicked by Maduro himself, carrying a draft deal to hand over Venezuela's future for protection. A desperate attempt to keep the regime alive. The capture ripped open the regime's last lifeline, exposing Russia and Cuba's fingerprints in the process. The Caribbean has become the center of a silent war as the U.S. operations against Venezuela intensify each passing day. This buildup didn't rise from nowhere. Experts warned that a powerful network of high-ranking Venezuelan officials and military officers known as the Cartel of the Suns have corrupted parts of Venezuelan governmental institutions, using the country's institutions to facilitate drug trafficking to the U.S. and for other illicit activities. The U.S. imposed a naval marine blockade in the Southern Caribbean Sea, position not to invade, but to monitor and stop their activities, further tightening the blockade that now strangles the Maduro regime as part of a counter-narcotics and counterterrorism campaign. U.S. intelligence says the Caribbean smuggling route is reopening with Colombian cocaine moved into Venezuela and being sent by sea on many submarines and speedboats. This U.S. deployment will aim to shut that down. Suspicious vessels may be detained and boarded on the high seas with or without flag consent. And this wasn't only cutting off the economic arteries that kept the Maduro regime alive. It was also shaking the internal political balance of the entire country. With every move, the military and intelligence pressure from the United States has forced Maduro to seek new allies. Amid the rising pressure, word got out that the president was attempting to resort to a secret submarine operation to seek support from Cuba. However, this plan quickly failed thanks to the powerful radar systems of the U.S. Navy. During a routine patrol, the U.S. Navy detected a strange signal on their radar. The source traced back to a submarine sailing in international waters. But there was a problem. The vessel didn't appear in any official database. No registration, no international license. And when they got a closer look, they discovered the hull markings of Russia-made systems all over it. The U.S. Southern Command immediately informed Washington of the submarine's presence, and the order from the White House was clear: stop the submarine, identify its cargo, and find out where it's headed. The U.S. Navy immediately mobilized reconnaissance choppers launched from an aircraft carrier nearby, while destroyers and frigates were redirected to the submarine's coordinates. The hunt was officially on. Multiple radio warnings were sent. Declare your cargo en route, or you'll be stopped by force. Instead of responding, the submarine increased speed and changed course, a move that was seen as an open challenge to the United States authority. Southern Command answered by deploying additional units. An anti-marine warfare ship was sent in, launching low-intensity torpedoes, designed not to destroy, but to force the submarine to surface. The shock waves disrupted the vessel's internal systems, reducing its ability to maneuver and stripping away any last hope of escape. After about an hour of tension, the submarine finally broke the surface. Within minutes, U.S. attack helicopters swarmed overhead. Special forces roped down, and the hatch cracked open. Inside was the proof Washington had been waiting for. The hunt was finally over, but the nightmare for Maduro was just beginning. When U.S. forces stormed inside, they found more than contraband. The submarine carried not only ordinary crew, but also cargo and special passengers that revealed the critical scale of the operation. Inside were tons of gold bars, barrels of smuggled oil. The valuable cargo was supposed to be a bargaining chip, tools for Maduro's regime to finance itself and buy international support. However, the gold and oil weren't the only revelations. Sitting among the captured crew was a high-ranking Venezuelan general, considered to be one of Maduro's most trusted enforcers, a man with years of decisive influence. And in the States' military chain of command, his presence instantly exposed the true weight of the mission, and during interrogations it was discovered that the general was heading to Cuba to negotiate a new security deal. Hidden among his belongings was a draft memorandum of understanding with Cuba, revealing Maduro's intention to trade Venezuela's treasure for Cuban backing and new security guarantees. But there was one more twist. U.S. engineers identified Russian-built components buried in the submarine's hull and wired into the electronic systems. Proof that while Moscow does not openly provide direct military support, it maintains a covert channel of technology transfer, quietly feeding Kharkiv with advanced technology. Now, the U.S. plans to present this evidence to the international community to pressure both Russia and the Maduro regime while exposing Moscow's hidden hand in the chaos. The fallout was instant and Trump was ready to make it explode. The fallout quickly spread across Latin America. For many nations, the captured general was an undeniable proof of how deeply the Venezuelan state had merged with criminal cartels. Trump formally designated the Cartel of the Suns as a terrorist organization, accusing Maduro of leading it, and raised the bounty for his capture to $50 million, twice the figure once set for Osama bin Laden. Oh, we'll see what happens. Look, Venezuela is sending us their gang members, their drug dealers, and drugs. It's not acceptable. According to the DEA and other agencies, almost 25% of the world's cocaine routed through Colombia now passes through Venezuela and into global markets. It's not a tightly in syndicate. It's a hidden web of trafficking networks facilitated by corrupt officials and state institutions that thrive in the vacuum left by Venezuela's crumbling state control. Across Latin America, Colombia, and Brazil back the U.S., declaring Maduro's regime threatens not only its own citizens but also the safety of the entire region. President Donald Trump declared, "We will eradicate the roots of the narco regime in Venezuela. While they try to escape with gold and oil, we bring the truth to light." But the bigger question was, what would Cuba and Russia do now that their secrets had surfaced? The submarine was towed to U.S. shores under heavy escort and transferred to a restricted naval shipyard for a full inspection. The gold and oil barrels were cataloged and placed under federal custody, while the Venezuelan general and his crew are placed under maximum security and subjected to interrogation. Intelligence officials believed the secrets he carried could unravel Venezuela's hidden network of deals. 1. General Flipping could reveal new smuggling routes, secret allies, and even expose Havana's role in financing the regime, which could significantly tip the balance across the entire region. And then came the Russian connection, bringing with it the usual mix of aggression, manipulation, and chaos. More engineers confirmed the submarine contained advanced tech only Moscow could have provided. Now, Washington held not just gold, but leverage over two of Maduro's only remaining allies. Maduro's response was combined with both rage and fear. He banned non-state sale and use of drones, and the Venezuela government called for a nationwide mobilization that supposedly enlists firefighters, communal councils, and about 4.5 million militia members. These operations have no other purpose than to once again encourage extremist groups in the country and the region to return to violence. Thousands of militiamen are marching towards Fertana from capital Caracas. It is said to be the country's largest military complexes. For this, around 300 bases have been opened across the country, perhaps as a show of strength and to reinforce defensive border security. Venezuela also announced the deployment of 15,000 troops to the Colombian border and also sent ships to the northern part of the country's territorial waters, likely facing the U.S. fleet. But behind the bluster, his empire was crumbling. The general's capture wasn't just humiliating. It exposed the cracks inside the military chain of command. Whispers spread that others might defect, fearing they'd be the next pawn sacrificed in Maduro's deals. And the longer he waited, the higher the pressure from Washington, Bogota, Brasilia, and even Havana. Nobody knew which would snap first, the blockade, the regime, or Maduro himself. The submarine's real treasure wasn't gold. It was the intelligence, names, routes, and secret agreements. With it, the U.S. could dismantle Venezuela's support abroad, expose Cuba's desperation, embarrass Moscow on the global stage, and at last call Russia what truly is an aggressive, destabilizing power bent on undermining democracy wherever it can. Every secret pulled from the captured general chipped away at Maduro's grip, and every gold bar stacked in U.S. custody was one less lifeline for his regime. Trump called it the truth pulled from the sea. But for Maduro, It may be the beginning of the end. The capture of Maduro's secret gold submarine wasn't just another headline. It was a strike at the heart of his survival plan. A trusted general exposed. A secret deal with Cuba destroyed. Russia's fingerprints uncovered and Maduro forced to watch his gold pulled out from the sea as his empire sinks deeper into isolation. If this was his last lifeline, then his time may already be running out. Will Maduro cling on, or will the world finally watch his regime sink for good? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe,